Welcome once again to another ALBUMMIN. I am your Jacob Wayne, and with me is my funkalicious boo Kellen Givens. How you doing?
Oh, doing well. Ready to smoke this bit.
Hell yeah. Well, on this next review, we are going to be going over Meshuggah's new album, Immutable. For those that
Yeah.
don't know, Meshuggah is a Swedish extreme metal band formed in Umeå in 1987. That's in Sweden. And it was formed by Thomas Hake and I believe their rhythm guitarist, Martin Hagstrom.
Oh,
Pretty good interview with Thomas Hake, the drummer. He's an incredible drummer. And he
yeah.
really broke down their mentality and all that stuff of what it meant to them going into this record. And before I pull any tidbits from that little thing, I'll just go ahead and ask you, what did you think of the album?
I thought it was cool. Thought it was great. I thought it was Meshuggah.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, you know, they got their sound and they did it again. They put out another album, another Meshuggah album. It's cool.
Yeah.
So if you, yeah, I like it.
I would say that Meshuggah is one of those bands where you want them to just refine what they do and like throw in a couple little surprises,
Yeah.
experiment a little bit within that. But yeah, you're not wanting them to experiment too wildly outside of the thing it is that they do. Because
Yeah.
every album they make is so dense with like
Yeah.
the time signatures and it's not, I wouldn't say it's like really dense in terms of like following where the changes are, because they do really rock out on parts for a while
Yeah.
and let you get into the groove of it. It really is just kind of like figure out what the time signatures are, so when it shifts into this other thing, it just hits harder and harder the more you listen to it.
Yeah.
um but before I get into it, did you feel like you picked up on any particular themes in this album?
I wasn't like have a hard time understanding him.
Sure.
So
That's
I
fair.
wasn't listening for too much lyrical content. I actually heard him say kaleidoscope in that song. I was like, hey, I heard the name. That's a
Yeah.
word that is easy to hear screamed though. So
Kaleidoscope.
I was like, yeah, hell yeah. But
Yeah. So in the interview, Thomas talked about how they're all getting to be almost 60.
mhm.
Like they're getting old. And with when you're in a band like Meshuggah, and like especially for the drums at the very least, but I think
Yeah.
every single one of them, they're starting to feel it.
Yeah.
So the the album itself, I don't know if it's reflected in the title as much. I'm sure it is, depending on how you approach it, but it is about them getting older and like the world not really changing, and the way that human beings are doesn't seem to change, and we're all
Uh-huh.
beaten down by time and the inevitability of just life and death and the cycle of it all.
Huh.
The first song
Interesting.
of the album is called Broken Cog, and I mean that's just about you and me, or them, just being broken cogs in this constantly moving machine.
Huh.
And I'm a very big Meshuggah fan. The first thing that I got into by them was a song, New Millennium Cyanide Christ,
Yeah.
on Chaos Sphere. And that was just had this particular kind of heavy groove to it. And once again, sometimes I don't really know why I like or dislike certain singers, but I love the way this guy screams.
Yep.
It's just a very, for lack of a better term, a very manly way of screaming.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't get too low and go Cookie Monster,
Yeah.
and it doesn't get too high and get like kind of screechy, whiny emo.
Yeah.
He's just, and when you see him live, he looks like me essentially, probably more attractive, but like just has a beard, bald head, and he's just up there and he like kind of holds himself and just like tries to feel the timing of everything.
Yeah.
And I think that was it too. There is like a certain humor to them that I think might be hard to pick up on from like first time listeners.
Yeah.
But in New Millennium Cyanide Christ, the video is them in their tour bus and they're acting like they're playing.
Oh
They're
yeah,
just
yeah,
using like pens and pencils.
yeah.
Just just playing like they're playing, but and yeah,
Yep.
he's singing into a pen,
Yeah.
but it's like, hell yeah. I like that.
Yep. They're awesome.
That being said, that's a silly kind of music video. And over time, they've really wrapped up their new albums and the art of it. They've kind of interwoven it to the stage production, kind of almost like on a Tool level.
Yeah.
Nothing quite hits the production of a Tool concert for me, but they get close. Like all the lights are like synced up with different instruments.
Yeah, that shit's crazy.
Yeah, so like the red light will burst every time the kick hits. So
Yeah, that's
that's
badass.
like one of my favorite parts about seeing them live is seeing it all kind of visually like parsed out from what you hear on the record. And
Yeah.
the a complaint from some fans on this was that it was mixed a little too warm. Do you have anything to add to how you feel about the mix? Did it
It
sound good to
I
you?
it
Did it
did
sound
well no,
strange?
yeah, it did sound good. It did sound a little less like in your face than their last album. So I never attributed that to a warp, but I guess that is what it is because they still they're doing what they did on the other albums. They just don't have it mixed with so much edge. So when the guitar's like chunk, it's like smacking you. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
little backed off a little bit on the highs, I guess. So
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah, I'd say that. I don't think it's a bad thing though. I kind of
No.
like it like
No,
that.
I like it. I think some people just want that like bah,
But but it's like
but it's like you get worked back up to the bah after you get used to the music and the emotionality of it hits you.
Yeah, that's the thing. You think you like it, then for me personally, like it's like Diablo Swing Orchestra's been doing that. Their albums, I think the mix has been getting in some ways smoother, but
Mm-hmm.
still just as heavy. And but yeah, and then you go back, you're like, oh man, I like that. It's like more in your face. You go listen to it. You're like, yeah, but I kind of prefer the new version once you get used to it. I
Yeah,
like it kind of smoothed out. Let the music do the heaviness, not the mix too
yeah.
much. So
I do prefer a warmer sound and
hmm
like not as the volume isn't as loud. You actually have to like get it up there to get loud. Like
yeah,
um two records I can think of as far as mixes go, and we're not going to dive into that too much because this is just talking about one album, but we recently did an interview for Red Hot Chili Peppers Unlimited Love. I liked the mix on that, but one of their old albums, Californication,
uh-huh.
apparently in the late 90s, there was like a volume war with CDs and how they were mixed because it was like whatever you're bumping in your car.
Yeah.
Like, so if you're riding up in your car, you want that CD to just automatically be louder than whatever's playing in the other person's car, was apparently how they were thinking about it.
Huh.
So if you go and throw on Californication after you just listen to like a really like even this record or a nice warm record from the 70s and just put on Californication, you'll be like, ow, like what the fuck? That hurts. Like,
That's loud as shit.
and then but then I don't know, it's interesting because I don't know how much people really think about this kind of stuff. But like another recent album review we did, Horror HO9909,
Uh-huh.
um that whole album is based around like noise and the bass being overblown and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That being said, they mixed it in a way where it doesn't hurt,
Yeah.
like you can still get that overblown bass sound or like the huge punch of the snare or kick and have it not hurt your ears,
Yep.
which I think they just put more attention into that on this record. And so for those complaining, yeah, I just think they're nitpicking in a unreasonable way. One interesting element of this record is even, you know, the members would admit, yeah, like Meshuggah is a thing that slowly evolves, but Meshuggah is Meshuggah,
Yeah.
and it's just this kind of lateral move from other metal bands when they started to just make their own kind of weird experimental sound, which just became them. And but he's saying like, so this is an example of a little change they made. Is he was like, on our last couple records, I wish I knew the drum terminology better because it would have stuck. But he was saying like his snare hits would be like a little more immediate. They'd be like and it would make the whole song like like
Yeah.
that. But on this record, he has it on like the backbeat. So then there's like more of a groove to it, as he
Ah.
described it. So it's like
Yeah, yeah,
it was like really kind of cool. And it just made me like, God, I wish I understood drums better. But
that's interesting.
yeah, I mean, other than that, it's really hard to break down um the whole thing, because Meshuggah records really take me a while to digest.
Yeah, and this one, like, it made sense when you told me about what it's about
Mm-hmm.
because it kind of does just roll on, like it's just chugs along,
Yeah,
like the song into the next song. There is some of them have a pretty bit like an intro or a break or
yeah,
something, but a lot of it's just chugging along doing the crazy time signature stuff in relatively the same close keys. So it's not like, oh, this is a brand new song, you know.
yeah. No, that's
Um,
kind of how I look at Meshuggah records. Is they're like, if you've made the comparison with metal music being like classical music, and with Meshuggah, I would say you just look at their albums like a classical piece, like,
mhm.
and you kind of just, yeah, you get used to the movements that are within it, because it is essentially like a cathedral that's been like taken over and mutated by an evil machine.
Uh-huh.
And it's so you're just listening to this mad machine that's like in charge of this like cathedral orchestra, and like that's kind of what Meshuggah is to me. Like even the singing just feels like another like part of a machine going through its operations and
Yeah,
rhythms, which is
for
always
sure.
like, it's perfect. I guess we didn't do this on our last review, like, but I don't even know if it called for it. Like I kind of wanted with these reviews to like, what is the best setting to like take this album in,
Ah,
or like what's the best way to listen to it. And like for Meshuggah, if you're on a long walk, put on some Meshuggah, or even like at the gym, I would imagine. I
yeah.
should probably go more, but I have thrown on Meshuggah before and it works really well.
That's a good spot.
But yeah, running on a long walk, especially like late at night, if you're a little tipsy and you're just like walking home from your friend's house or the bar, like just throw this on and it's like, yes.
Oh yeah,
And I found it as a really good cathartic release. Was
indeed.
going through a tough time with a relationship way back in the day. And this is just consistent with any Meshuggah album. They're all very consistent. But I remember just being so angry about all that. And then I just threw on Chaos Sphere, and it was just, I don't even have time to be upset and emotional, because this is just like, just
Yeah,
just pulling it all out of me, like in a
yep,
really positive way.
yeah, for sure.
So I don't know. I guess that's kind of another way I fell in love with them, is that it is just this cathartic release, but it's like this controlled machine like way of doing it. It's not like an anger or heaviness that's going to make you even more emotional potentially. This just
Yeah,
beats you over the head with inevitability.
yeah, yeah.
Yep. Oh yeah, and the bass you can hear a little bit more on this record. It's got like a nice, really
Oh,
nice growl to it.
yeah. The very first opening notes, I'm like, that bass is huge. Sounds like the string is just like vibrating like a foot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, man.
good
You
stuff.
got any other thoughts on this record?
I really liked the instrumental in the middle. They move below. That was cool. Like
Oh
a
yeah, yeah.
30-minute, just like shred fest. Some
Mm-hmm.
cool guitar solos, like the song right before that one.
The
Um,
God He Sees in Mirrors. Yeah.
yeah, that had a cool solo. Then the there was some really the Faultless. They might be some other spots, but that was the ones where I really dug the. He had like the screams going like raw, like alternating ears.
Hmm.
That shit's cool. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know how much Meshuggah does that, but I was like, oh, that's cool. I like when bands do that.
One bit of information from one of the interviews was that the singer, I always forget his name. I'm gonna find it. It's Jens Kidman.
Uh-huh.
He had a lot more time to work on this record, and they like
Oh,
broke it down to like sometimes he has only about 4 to 6 weeks to do his vocals, just
wow.
based on their touring schedule and all this. And like this one, they really got to take their time. So he
Nice.
would try different things like whispering or like different tonalities to his scream more than he normally has.
Yeah. I thought I heard some different ones from him. That's cool.
Well, and I mean, they have done things like that before, but it is always a nice little treat.
Hmm.
Like at the very end of Broken Cog when he's just whispering, you're like, oh, okay. It's
Yeah.
a little unusual.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. Got a favorite track? I don't have one yet.
Yeah, I don't really know. I really was liking the thought ligature marks was pretty cool. And there
Yeah.
was a really cool bendy breakdown on phantoms. Go,
Hmm.
you know, really cool one of those.
Yeah. This is another record where the front half is it's really good. Just goes from one thing to the next.
Yeah.
And yeah, I once again, as I've said in other reviews, I have a hard time getting to the very end of an album. This one can be taxing. I could see people dipping out after a couple, like, okay, I'm good. Like
Yeah.
ready for something a little more mellow, but it's like so that's what I'm thinking. Like, yeah, long walk, working out, things like that. Kind of it gets into its groove and you can stick with it.
Yeah. When you're just trying to pass time as well.
Hmm. That is true.
Indeed.
Yeah, cleaning the house. I threw it on while I was like cleaning the kitchen, doing dishes, things like that. It worked
Nice.
really well that way too. Keeps you working, like a robot.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, so do you recommend the album?
Oh yeah.
All
I
right, so you
recommend
give
this
it
one.
a
Let's do it. Yep.
yeah. I'm gonna have to
Let's shoot get done it again.
two of those. These boys are crazy. Absolutely Meshuggah. All right, it's been great.
Indeed. See you next time.
Bye bye.